somebody who I imagine submits without a standardized test will have to kind of think about that as well as part of their application.
Literally fresh off the press, Anderson test optional this year. So first of all, what went into that decision? And kind of, why don't you just give us an overview of kind of what that means for the program, who really fits into that world of not needing a test, and how you think about test optionality in general from your perspective.
Yeah, great. So you asked about what went into that process. What were you thinking? This is like years in the making. Anybody who's been in the higher ed space has seen many programs consider test optionality. A lot of it was probably heightened or accelerated during the COVID period. UCLA Anderson was not one of those schools, and I know there's a number of other schools that are not. But just in monitoring the market and seeing how not all individuals are great test takers or are able to show their academic success in other ways, we kept monitoring the market. We really thought that, especially this year, we were able to act more on it based on the responses of candidates who have gone through our other programs. So in our part-time MBA, our executive MBA program, they have been admitting people from a test optionality standpoint or other options like the executive assessment beyond just the GMAT or GRE, and they're doing well. So again, UCLA, which is really grounded in research and data-driven decisions, the business school, especially the full-time MBA program, we were able to finally move that process forward. I'm not going to tell you all the different steps that went into it that include different committees and even approval from the UCLA campus in and of itself, but I really feel good about the place that we're in right now. Like you said, we announced to the world yesterday, again, the application is live today. And hopefully I'm going to answer your other questions, but please remind me, when what we anticipate is that people are going to have questions. I think we've done a good job on the FAQ side, but some of those concerns might be, what if I apply without a standardized test score? Will that impact my candidacy negatively? No, that's not the case. You definitely will need to think about how can you prove your quantitative skill sets to us, because again, we're a holistic approach. I talked about how we want to make sure people succeed. One of those areas is in the classroom. We're very quant heavy. So the fact that perhaps whether it be through your transcript or additional courses or in your place of work, you showcasing those skill sets, that success outside of submitting a standardized test score are going to be very important. So I'm sorry, Eric, ask those other questions if I didn't answer those. My brain can capture everything.
No. I think you did hit on that. And so if I'm a candidate, let's say, and again, this is fresh off the press, so I haven't even had a chance to look at the policy. So excuse me for this, but am I using a waiver process? And are you approving me prior to, or is it just I have the ability to decide on my own and I need to use my best judgment, and that judgment is part of what you're evaluating as well?
It is the latter.
Okay.
So we're not handing out test waivers. So you just, again, have to advocate and through the materials show when you submit your application, to the best of my ability, I think that I am going to be able to apply, be enrolled for the class of 2026 or in the future. I don't anticipate us suspending after this year our test optionality. I mentioned it earlier that we are also adding the executive assessment as an option for people to apply as well. But again, directly to your question about whether or not people are applying for the option of applying without a test score, we're like, no, we're not going to do that. Just think that's too much stress on individuals. You can apply without a test if you wish.
So if I make the wrong call and I'm like, I'm gonna take a shot, and like you're like, oh, I like Eric's background, but like he hasn't demonstrated the quant. Um, do I have that? Are you going to be? And maybe you haven't thought about this, but is your strategy to waitlist candidates and then give them feedback like, hey, you're waitlisted, but it's because I don't have enough. It's kind of a TBD, but you can make a a choice to take a test later and show me this, or are you just going to have to like make your decision with what the information you have? And in that case, you're like, I don't have enough information to know if this person would be successful. And then I would do it like I would normally do it, like if, say, someone was like, below a test threshold, I'd have to almost make that decision. How do you think about that?
Oh, that's great. You're putting me on the hot seat. You want me to open up the black box. I'm going to keep the black box closed, but it is a fair question. And let's just say, and this would also go for somebody who did submit a test score, that from our holistic review, they don't necessarily at that point in time, round one, round two, round three, whatever it may be, maybe because of how we're shaping the class, that individual is not in the threshold of necessarily being admitted, but definitely we still like that individual. We're not going to deny them right away. So what we do with individuals is that, and many do contact us with, and I anticipate a question like that, should I take the test or not? We're going to give them sort of, again, no guarantees that if you take the test and if you get a certain score, you're going to be admitted. We're not that type of program, but we're definitely going to still stress from a self-reflection standpoint that when you think about your overall application, where do you stand in the class, so, per se? I know right now we don't have necessarily a profile publicly that showcases, candidates who have been admitted without a standardized test score. But just thinking about our normal practice and what we've seen in previous years, people are really good about figuring out like, okay, maybe my GPA, they may have a great GMAT score or GRE score, but their GPA is below the threshold that we publicize on our website. And some people have taken upon themselves to take an additional course, submit that to us, and next thing you know, they're off the wait list. Again, kind of circling back to the test, same thing. They can see maybe their standardized test score is outside of our class range, and they'll do that as well. Somebody who I imagine submits without a standardized test will have to kind of think about that as well as part of their application if they're put on the wait list from a self-reflection standpoint, thinking about like, okay, where do I stand in all those different dimensions, without our office saying like, okay, if you do step A, then you're definitely going to be admitted. So hopefully that answers your question.
It does. It does. I think what Alex is saying is when you go camping, you might as well bring the bug bite spray just in case you need it, right? Like, so if you're on the border, you're not really sure, bring the bug bite spray. That's what I'm reading into that statement. Have that
Yeah,
as an
yeah, and if
option.
yeah, I like that. I like that analogy. And one thing I just mentioned while you were talking, it just made me think about, for as long as I've been doing this, every year is different, right? I know many have said like, hey, a recession is around the corner or whatever. I've seen years where our application volume went from one year to the next up 30%. I've seen it go down in a different direction. I've seen, because I keep in touch with directors from all the top 25 schools, and we sort of have at least a good sense of what the market looks like, down domestic, up international, vice versa. More women are applying or more people with a finance background, whatever that may be. You as a candidate really don't know from one year to the next what's going to happen. So it's kind of, like a better term, putting your best foot forward based on what you think your candidacy looks like. Again, whether you're an engineer that's taken a lot of quant classes and has done decently well, or maybe again, you're a poet and you maybe not necessarily taken a lot of quant courses. How are you going to show the committee at UCLA Anderson that you can handle that academic rigor that I mentioned earlier? And there's a variety of different ways. I'm not going to repeat myself, but again, I just want to throw that in that you never know from one year to next what's going to happen. So